Okay, I'm going to talk about fiat versus standardized currency. So the argument for the standardization, like gold, like a gold standard, is that a government can just print money if the currency isn't tied to anything, and that's exactly what they do, right? Like if we look at COVID, the stimulus bills in response to COVID printed money and then handed that money out. It was slightly means tested, right? And then the result was inflation. In fact, the result was an overcorrection in inflation. So what happened is that the people who actually needed that money the most, it was means tested. The people who needed it the most, it ended up hurting them the most because in the long term, and or even in the medium term, right? If you spent your stimulus bill on day one, maybe you got what you needed out of it. But if you save that money, then you just allowed the prices to increase, and your buying power may not have even increased. It may have increased slightly, right? Because you did get some money, but in reality, in the long term, it did not increase. It decreased because we know that there was an overcorrection in inflation. And that overcorrection in inflation was driven by the corporations and the wage setters who again, set the wages and the prices. So if we imagine what gold could do in this scenario, okay, in an economic recession or depression, the idea is that, I mean, gold's a commodity, right? So the idea is that if the currency is tied to gold, the prices can't inflate. But let's think about what gold is. Again, it's a commodity. Physical gold itself doesn't actually have a whole lot of uses. We use it what in electronics and in like, jewelry. Again, it doesn't have a lot of uses. So in a world where necessities are scarce, okay, where say we had a climate catastrophe that destroyed all our food production, in a world where necessities are scarce, in an economic depression, gold's not going to hold its value, okay, because because the people need necessities, and that physical gold doesn't provide necessities. The only thing that gives value to gold during a depression is the perception that that gold will have value after the depression. But that doesn't matter when you need food today. Okay, again, it's the necessities that hold value during a depression. Okay, food, shelter, even energy. It's not gold. So in a depression that's bad enough, when necessities get to a point where they're not available, like where there's not enough necessities, you're gonna buy loaves of bread with ounces of gold. It's just not gonna work out. And when that depression ends, again, the people who were controlling the necessities are going to have even more money. It's not a good long term strategy unless you can guarantee the production of a stable production of necessities. And I mean, can we do that? I mean, we can't even feed the people in the world now. So if you think we can, I would argue different. So I'm going to present another idea, another way to standardize a currency. And fair warning, the world is not ready for this yet. In order for this idea to actually become reality, the entire world would have to be under the same currency. Okay, but the idea is to standardize, or rather to tie the money supply to population. Okay, now the most obvious argument against this is that as technology improves, the average value output per person also increases because that technology, it allows them to produce more value per hour, right? But historically, this is not actually a good thing for economies, because historically, as that technology increases the average value output of the average laborer, that the benefits of that value production, it goes to the upper class. It goes to the people who set the wages and who set the prices. It goes to the upper class. The middle and lower class have never gotten the benefits of the new developments in technology. I mean, even the engineers who develop the technology don't see most of the benefits. It's mostly, again, it's the owners, it's the people setting the wages and the prices. The people at the top always seem to take more than their fair share. So if we were to argue that we need to increase the money supply as technology improves and as the average value output per worker increases with that improving technology, then you're going to just allow, again, the upper class to siphon the value production from the middle and lower class who are actually creating it. So I'm going to tell you that if we ever do get under one globalized currency, this will be the economic model. We will tie the money supply to the population. It's the only way to stabilize an economy, because again, the nature of greed is just to steal the value production of that new technology. And there's you could talk about AI in this conversation if you wanted to, but there's this argument that Dr. Wolf makes, okay, and it's this idea that if the average laborer is creating more value production than they themselves use, who gets that extra value production? Who gets to hold on to those assets? The current answer is the owners, right? And this is, when you allow this to happen, you push this wealth inequality higher and higher until, again, until people can't support themselves. People can't afford food and whatever, healthcare, whatever it may be. So there's a possibility that you could limit the wealth of the upper class through, I mean, tax rates and whatnot. And in effect, an engineer could provide more value than the janitor, right? But we would need to do that. We would need to ensure that the owners are not stealing the value production of those new technologies from the laborers. And I expect the future economy will fall somewhere in the middle there. We will tie the money supply to the population, and the people who go to school and study and have the skilled laborers, they'll make a little more money. But if we continue down this model where every time we improve the value production of the average laborer, we print more, we increase the money supply, it's not going to work, and it's never worked before. It's always led to instability, and we need to catch on to this pattern, because again, we now have the weapons to destroy ourselves. And if we keep thinking that the U.S. economy is going to lead the world rather than Russia, if we keep trying to dominate everybody, it's just not going to work. We're just going to fight more. We're just going to kill each other more. We have to stop the exploitation of labor, and until that happens, the economy will never stabilize. The instability comes from the scarcity that is caused by the exploitation of labor. So give that a little thought. Thanks for watching.